This is Wild on 7th, your favorite Wild podcast. Did you guys see this? This is unbelievable. What is that all about, Kinger?
Get in here for the real thing. Like, let's get weird.
Maybe I blacked out trying to figure out what was going on.
Doubt, worry, fear, because that's what we're breaking the mold on here.
Welcome to Wild on 7th, presented by Pilot Games. We're here until it's here.
All right, well, we got a couple of special guests with us here this afternoon. But as always, it is sponsored by our friends at Duke Cannon. And if your hair is a weapon or you want it to be a weapon, make sure you use their products. And speaking of hair as a weapon, that's a good time for me to introduce our guest of the show. He's got NHL total 416 games played, all with one organization. That's a feather in the cap right there. He's currently one of the bench bosses of our favorite hockey club. It is assistant coach Patty Dwyer. Welcome to the show. Thank you, my man. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Doing well, Joe. Good to see you again.
You want to intro? Maybe we should do it this way, because this is a little different than we've ever done this before. Mr. King is out of town. He's soaking up the rays in southern Florida, and with some schedule issues, we could only get our friend Pat to jump on the show while Kinger was out of town. So sitting in his seat is a new staple to the show, Radio Joe. That has a nice rhyme to it. Back to back, they faced each other. Yeah, baby. So yeah, great. Everybody, thank you for joining the podcast today. Yeah, appreciate it.
Part of me thought, while producer Matt Hussey was kind of like, hey, we're going to get an assistant on. I was like, well, if John King's not here, maybe put Jason King in here so you have a Kinger replacing a Kinger.
That's a good idea.
But I'm glad we got Patty, if I'm being honest.
Is that more of a shot at Jason?
No,
King?
I enjoy talking to Jason King, but I want to dive into the jungle life of Pat Dwyer from his days in the AHL.
The American Hockey League?
I can't wait.
Now, are we talking playing or?
Well, both.
Well, lead. Lead with this.
No, I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not ready for that.
All right.
First thing I want to know is, like, do you prefer Patrick, Patty, Pat? Where, like, if your preferred name?
Patty's probably the most common.
Yeah, you're a hockey guy.
Patrick's my mom if I'm in trouble. But yeah, Patty, all good.
Yeah, because I feel like I've called you Patty a lot, and I just you probably would have told me.
It was just St. Patrick's Day, Patty. Like it just goes. It sounds best there.
Wait, were you just Patty when you played then?
Yeah. It's like if your last name's Campbell, your nickname's Soupy.
Soupy.
Yeah.
If your name's Pat, your nickname's Pat.
Yeah.
If your name has a strong consonant in the middle of it, it's that with a Y, Cartsy, right? You just
you probably got shortened to Carts though, right?
Yeah, but then there's always a Y on it at the
Yeah. Why should there always be a Y?
like Patty.
Yeah.
Throw a Y.
That's a great start.
We're off to a solid start here on the podcast. So let's get back to first of all, your playing days. Where are you from? Because I got to get to the bottom of this. Spokane, Washington?
All right, so longer story here, but my dad was in the Air Force. Mom was pregnant with me right before she had me. He got stationed to Montana. So I was born in Spokane, lived there 10 days. As soon as they were able to travel with me, moved to Montana, lived in Montana until I was 18. When I went to Western Michigan, my dad retired from the Air Force. They moved to Wisconsin. I started going back in the summers. Got a house there. That's now every summer.
So Wisco's home now, right? That's where your family is this season?
Yeah, Wisco's home now.
So when you're filling out like the welcome to the NHL, and
where are you from?
Yeah, you put Spokane?
No, it was Great Falls, Montana. Unfortunately, the NHL uses your birthplace as your hometown. So would have been the first guy. I am the first guy from Montana.
Yeah, that's what I have on here.
I was wondering that. I was going to ask you if there were other NHLers because I didn't look it up. Is there anybody else since you?
No, there's one.
Not that's from there and grew up there. Sanderson.
Yeah, Jake Sanderson in Ottawa.
But he was the reverse of my story. His parents have a cottage in Whitefish, Montana. Had him over the summer while his dad was still playing. Never lived there, never grew up there. Just where he was born.
So the combination of you and Sanderson is like the Montanan of the NHL.
The Mount Rushmore of Montana hockey. But Bill Lindsay, a veteran of 777 games, it was said he's from the Big Sky State, but he was also born in BC. But it was never said that he was from Montana. But if we were to ask you where you're from, you say
Montana.
nice.
Do they have a sign up
now,
for you in your hometown, like hometown of Patty Dwyer?
No,
They should.
It's like
like you drive through at 90 mile an hour.
Pretty sure Cody McLeod in his town in Manitoba, like when you pull into the town, it's like, this is where Cody McLeod's from.
Yeah, but that's Canada. That's every Canadian city. Like
Yeah,
you go
Chris
to a Canadian
Pronger.
city, you got the billboard. It's
Like
got
Mason
that.
Shaw
Mike
is like
Richards.
the face of Wainwright, Alberta.
Yeah.
No, they got billboards for Wrangler jeans.
We should see if we can't get something going there and just put it up in
Yeah.
Great Falls.
Patty Dwyer
Patty Dwyer.
modeling
With a Y.
Wranglers jeans
Yes, and a cowboy hat.
and a cowboy
So how in the
hat.
heck did you start off playing hockey in Great Falls then? Like how are you the first to come from Montana?
That's a good question. So there was a guy, Terry Casey, played at North Dakota. He was from Montana. Was set to be on, I believe, it was the 1960s Olympic team. Died in a car accident right before he went to the Olympics. So he possibly would have been the first guy from Montana, but tragically didn't make it to that point. But yeah, then it was me, and my dad was from Boston. Grew up loving hockey, obviously, and everything like that. So it was there.
But they have youth hockey.
Yeah.
Like plenty of opportunity to play.
And it's grown now. It's come a long ways. But the great thing about it was there was 4 cities that had youth hockey at that time. You had Billings, Bozeman, Great Falls, and Helena. And so none of Great Falls you're the closest to the Canadian border, so you were better. But we played out of Canada. So every week, Friday, noon at school, parents pick you up. You drive 3 hours up to Lethbridge. You'd play a game Friday night. You'd drive around southern Alberta. You'd play 3 games on Saturday, spend the night in Lethbridge. You'd travel around Sunday morning. You'd play 2 games, drive back home. You'd do it again the next weekend. So
That was every weekend.
every weekend.
Wow.
And so it was good because we saw a lot of really good competition. We were playing against Canadian kids, southern Alberta kids.
Kyle Pito, Lethbridge.
Yeah,
He's probably your era.
a little bit before me, but yeah.
I played with him in college. Good dude.
He was in Boise when I was there. I can concur. Good dude.
Well, good for you, man.
But that's crazy to me. All that travel. Like you hear guys a lot. They're like, I got to thank my parents, right? They drove me all around for youth hockey. Literally, you had no other choice but to play 3 hours at least.
Yeah, at least, and the hours in between those cities.
Right.
You know, you might play at 8:00 on Saturday in Raymond, and drive 45 minutes to Brockett, and play at 1, and then drive another hour and a half to.
Putting on the wet gear.
Yeah, so it was. You talk about thanking parents. We had a really good group, and it was, there's 6, 7 parents that would carpool together, and they'd grab kids whose parents couldn't go that weekend or whatever, and it was just like a little 7-car caravan that would travel around and stay at dive hotels and
Eating at the buffets.
yeah, eating at buffets, packing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to get you through the weekend. But it was a really good group of parents.
Dude, that's a pretty cool story. But and Montana has good junior hockey now. Like there's a lot of junior teams there. Like seems like there's an appetite for hockey.
Yeah, there was, and there had always been at one point Billings had a team in the WHL, the Western Hockey League. They had a team there, and then that kind of fizzled out. And then you had at the time as the America West League came in, which would compete with the NA and the USHL come nationals time when they were all kind of considered tier 2 and stuff. And then that league kind of folded, and a bunch of those Montana teams went into the NA. They were in the NA for a while. Travel costs just got too high, and then they've now stepped down to that NA3 league. But yeah, it's like a lot of the United States. It's a growing game. It's becoming more popular, and it's just a smaller per capita than anywhere else. So it takes a little bit longer to get there.
So then you play some junior hockey in Western Michigan, 4 years Western Michigan. How'd you end up there?
It was good. It was the good thing about when those leagues were around, you had showcases right at the beginning of every season. You had the Buck Bowl for the USHL. NA had their thing. We had the same thing. We had a showcase. all the teams were there. So scouts trickled in and had a good tournament. 16 years old, kind of put your name on the map, and then you kind of navigated from there, getting drafted into the WHL with the Lethbridge Hurricanes, navigating which direction you wanted to go, and ended up going to school.
Nice. And 4 years there. Who's Andrew Dwyer? Did you have like a cousin that went there? Or who's?
No relation at all.
Really? Spelled the same too, right?
Spelt the same. Kid from where is it? Hamilton, Ontario, I believe he was from. Yeah, so he was from no relation at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, funny. And then right into pro hockey, all Carolina. But you want to get to some of this American League.
Yeah, we got to talk about the AHL. I mean, I know it's.
Joe, you love the American
I
Hockey
do.
League.
I spent a lot of time there. Let's be honest. I mean, 15 years in the jungle or something like that. So I embrace it. I love it. Different perspective, obviously, broadcaster to player, and the league certainly changed from when you were there, and I think 05, 06 was maybe your first year, right?
Yeah.
In the American League to now, it's way different. But back then, it was a heavyweight league. It was 3 games in 3 days all the time. It was 4 games in 5 days before they outlawed that, I think in like 2009. What do you remember most about the AHL as you were trying to figure it all out?
Well, it was new to me at the time, right? And you're a young kid, and I don't think you really know any different. But like you said, yeah, it was 3 and 3s. I was with Chicago. Iowa was in our division. Houston was in our division. You would play 2 games down in Houston Friday, Saturday. You'd catch a flight home Sunday morning and play in Chicago at 5 that night. It was just, but being young at that time, first kind of coming into it, I didn't know any different. It was kind of what you did and went along with it, and then played 1 year there, and then you get to the East, and then you see how much easier the travel was in the East at that time with all those teams up in the Northeast, and you were like, wow, that Western Division's crazy.
Yeah. Do you feel like guys appreciate, well, not appreciate it, but guys that put in their time in the American League, do you understand the importance of that development, having gone through it, now coaching, seeing guys that have put in their time at the minors, how much it can help them, how much you can kind of tell at times guys that really want it, right? Because it's not easy to get through getting in off the bus sometimes 4 in the morning. Like, it gives you an appreciation for how hard guys work to get to the NHL level. What was that like as a player going through that grind? And now that you see it as a coach, do you feel like young guys that have to go through that development, maybe they're just a little bit more battle tested?
Yeah, I think so. And the reality of it is the way the NHL works and drafting kids at such a young age is none of these kids are really ready coming out of juniors. Like it's a league that has to be there. I was, 21 coming out of college at the time and was nowhere near ready to play in the NHL. So if you don't have a league like that, like basketball, football, or for example, I would have been done. You know what I mean? So it's huge. It's an opportunity to let kids grow, mature, find their game, and like you said, it weeds out the people that really want to do it and the ones.
Yeah, it gives you a reason to quit for sure. Like, it gets hard.
Exactly.
You get those big boys that are like, "Let's go, buddy. I'm gonna beat the wheels off you," and then you got to find a way to like not deal with that, and then you're $6 in the cup for your sub sandwich after the game.
And you're lucky if it shows up on the bus.
Yeah, it's cold.
They deliver it at the second intermission.
Yeah. And then somebody shorted the cup, so then you gotta fork over a few more bucks. And but that's it. Pre-game meal is like Olive Garden, maybe.
Yeah.
Like if you're lucky.
Yeah,
kinda.
we'd eat at the Johnny's Italian Steakhouse in like Quad City or whatever. When we'd go to play the Quad City Flames, I think they were at the time. This was when I was in Houston. And there was like the hotel you stayed at, and there was like the restaurant next door, and that's where you went and ate your meal. And yeah, way different now.
And half your team is like rookies, and then the rookies have to, at least they used to have to unpack the bags. So you'd have a game, you'd bus back 3 or 4 hours, you'd get back at 1 in the morning, you'd go to the rink, unpack everybody's bag, then you'd finally get to go back home. You go to bed at 3 in the morning, and then you've got to be at the rink the next day for like your video session to play the game. And then that third game in 3 days on Sunday, everybody's a zombie. There's like not a scout in the place because they're like, this is worthless. But it was a grind.
Yeah, and like you said, it's easy to quit.
Yeah, it gives you a reason to quit.
Exactly. So you do find the kids that want it, and then the kids that can find a way to play well in those games, those Sundays where you've traveled all day and stuff like that. That's where you really make the growth. And there used to be a saying back then that you could make the playoffs on Sunday. If you just won your Sunday games and you were all right in all the other games, you could make the playoffs.
Yeah. There's the league then, the American League then was super, super tough. I mean, if you go back and you look at the penalty minute leaders 10, 15 years ago in the AHL, every team had a guy with 200-plus penalty minutes. The real tough guys had 300-plus penalty minutes in like 45 games. I'm sure you were in some of those environments, Syracuse, Binghamton. When you're in Albany, you're playing all those teams. Intimidating at times. Like what, for our listeners, what was that atmosphere like on a Sunday afternoon in Syracuse when, it's 4,000 people, they're all buzzing in there, and you're looking across the ice and there's guys with 300 penalty minutes on their resume that are there solely to fight.
Yeah, it was, well, I'll say this. They did a good job keeping people honest, but they did a good job with the code. Like those guys back in the day did a really good job policing the game, but never did you have Scroy or Morasti or Yablonski chasing a guy around like me trying to fight, right? Like they're
They knew who they were out there.
That's because every team had a guy that would fight those guys.
Yes.
But they kept the game honest, but you didn't really have to. They'd run around and they'd finish their checks and stuff like that, but you didn't. They were pretty good to the code of just fighting each other, and they'd fight for a minute, punch each other in the face.
Straight for a minute.
And they were all best friends. They were.
I know, it's crazy.
Yablonski, Gillies,
Morasti,
Scroy, Morasti. They were all best men at each other's weddings. Like,
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
But
There was a great one that I was playing in Portland, and I think we were playing Hartford, and they had a guy, Lassard. I'll have to look up his first name. Frankie Lassard,
Yeah.
who
Was a monster.
and his wires would touch. But the building wasn't set up right, so we would cross
Yeah.
to get to our bench. So
That was
after,
San Antonio.
this was Portland.
Okay. San Antonio was the same way, and I think he played down there too,
Yeah.
where
yeah.
the visiting team would go off through the Zam tunnel.
Yeah. So you have to cross each other to get to your bench to start the period. No referees on
And the
ice.
end of the period to go off. Yeah.
And the way these guys work is they're like trains on the track. They're never going to get off of it. You've got to get off their tracks. And if you don't, you're going to get hit. It doesn't matter if it's warm up and you're their teammate. If you're the opposite team on your way to the bench, it didn't matter. And somebody clips Lassard, and that was it. Boom, it was on. So both teams are going at it. This is the second period hasn't started, and our coach, I think he has to walk across the ice to get to the bench. He does that. He gets to the bench, and it was Kevin Dineen. And Kevin Dineen starts like wanting to get into the mix, and Lassard goes to grab Kevin Dineen, and I had to put my arm over Lassard's to hook his arm so he couldn't punch anybody over there. And then he looks at me, and he all of a sudden I was in his crosshairs. I'm like, I actually don't want to be anymore. You can have your arm back. See ya. And but it was just it was wild. But that was the American League.
Did
That
you
was
see?
Sunday.
Were you part of or see any line brawls in your time in Albany?
no, nothing like that. When I was in Chicago, obviously Chicago is very similar.
Oh, yeah.
When you exit your side.
we
by
got
side.
another good
Gabriel.
one.
Yeah.
I played with Frankie Lassard on the team and Billy Tibbetts on the team that year.
Oh, Billy Tibbetts. We could talk for days about Billy Tibbetts.
And so Billy Tibbetts went across the concrete into the visiting locker room.
Into the locker
Trying
room.
to
Is this
fight
all
again.
State Arena in Rosemont?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it started from an incident in warm-ups. Close sprawl in warm-ups, no refs on the ice. Tried to fight the guy in the game. Carried over into him crossing the locker room. But yeah, Tibbetts and Lassard were together. There was a bus incident. I don't know if we can get into that, but they almost went toe-to-toe on the bus
As teammates?
as teammates
Whoa.
over who was sitting in whose seat.
They had their way of settling things.
It's like you said,
Testosterone.
there were trains on the track, and
Can't be in there. You can't be on their tracks.
just
You're
got to
gonna
get out of the way.
Real quick on Billy Tibbetts, and for our listeners, look him up, okay? Because he had all the tools and no toolbox. And I almost want to look over my shoulder saying that, because that's the type of guy Billy Tibbetts was. Super nice, super personable. I mean, Penguins training camp, they put a stall next to Mario Lemieux because they were like, if Super Mario can straighten this kid out, we've got a stud of a player. How good was he? How crazy was he, in your opinion?
Well, he was elite. He was an NHL talent all day. But like you said, it was a matter of keeping the wires in between the ears straight, and it was very hard to do. He was a train waiting to go off the tracks.
Yeah.
But absolutely elite hockey player. He would have made a lot of money if he could have figured it out.
On and off the ice. He had
On and
all
off
kinds
the
of
ice,
issues,
yeah. But some people just aren't wired that way.
So what was your big break? You go from, do you remember, like, did you have a big break that turned you from a college guy to AHL? I mean, you spent some time on the East Coast too, right, to start? I don't know if it was.
Yeah, that was, so my East Coast time was my last year. It was right after my senior year. It was the lockout year. So the AHL was pretty abundant with talent at that time. And
Yeah.
I wanted to go see, kind of where I fit at the pro level, and that was the way to do it, was to go to the coast. There was no opportunity for me in Chicago. They were loaded that year with Ballmeister and Wise, and the team they had. They went to the finals that year, so it was just an opportunity to go play pro and kind of go into that summer knowing and judging where I had to be and what it was going to be.
And then what was the big break?
I don't know if there. I would say there was a big break. I went into so drafted by Atlanta. They felt that they needed more time to evaluate me before signing me, so signed an AHL deal. Just went into Chicago in training camp. Had a really good camp. Felt good about it. Kind of hit the ground running that year. That summer, Atlanta kind of hem and hawed still. Like they tried to. And come free agency, a couple teams had called, and my agent's like, all right, well, we got to get a change of scenery. Just went there, and it was just the process of me continuing to find how to be a pro and how to do it. And when I came out, I was lighter, on the lighter side. I had a hard time keeping weight on. So it was a balance as a smaller guy in the game at that time, finding a way to impact the game over the course of an 82-game season. And it took a couple years, and then, really the big break was, like a lot of people say, it's timing and opportunity. You know what I mean? You first you need the timing to get the opportunity and the opportunity to do it. And I got called up, and
This is in Carolina now.
yeah, played really well, and just kind of went from there.
Was it Maurice the whole time?
Nope. So my first call up was Laviolette. So
Okay.
I got called up. I played 8 games under Laviolette. Really liked me, like, you know what I mean, was right on the path to becoming a regular. He got fired. Maurice came in. Played 2 games for him. He was like, hey, it was a great opportunity for me to see you. I know what you are now, but I have to figure out what we have here, right? So we're going to send you down. I have to find out what we have here, but like what you did. Went down, came up as a black ace that year. Made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Tuomo Ruutu got hurt in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Maurice called me in and was like, "Hey, I liked what you did the rest of the season. I know we sent you down the last 20 games, but you're the guy that's going in. So opportunity to play two playoff games. Unfortunately, my only 2 playoff games in Carolina, but it was a great experience. And when you look at the guys that were black aced and scratched at the moment that they picked you over some of the guys sitting out, it was kind of nice at that point. You knew that's kind of maybe that's the
break.
Yeah.
the breaking.
Yeah, Ruutu's injury might have been the break or something.
So and then from there the next year, kind of was regular from there on.
Then it's like 9-10 years with Carolina.
Yeah.
Was that all Maurice then?
No, so it was Maurice for the first 2, and then we brought in. They fired Maurice. They brought in Kirk Muller. Muller was there for 2.5, I believe, and then it was Bill Peters.
Let's take another word from the sponsors. We need these guys. We appreciate these guys.
So you don't have to wait till Easter to start doing your coleslaw. You don't have to wait till Memorial Day. Go check out Jimmy's Original, Jimmy's Pineapple, homegrown company, family run, down in Stewartville, Minnesota, 3rd generation. Check out the coleslaw. I don't know. It's one of those 2 things. Jimmy's, don't you be messing with my dressing. And
Now the Wild are building something.
they are.
with Double Deuce, with Kirill, and maybe Huznadinov might be on the market for a new home, and it maybe needs an upgrade or two. If it does, he should call our friends at Wild Construction, because they'll take care of him. And you don't really know either. Let's say you are buying a new house and you want to check on things. You might be able to get yourself a new roof too, because it can take up to 12 months for damage to show up. Did you know that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So you spend the winter, snow, everything else, get up on the roof, boom, there it is. The damage is showing up.
Yeah, there's like hail splatter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, winter's over. It's officially over. So the roofers can likely get up on there, check it out. But let's say he wanted new windows, new siding on a new place. Wild Construction can help him out with that. So let's use this hammer. We nailed that one. Boom.
What type of player were you? Like if you had a self-scout your game.
Self-scout, I was a bottom 6 energy player.
So we got 2 of them at this table.
Yeah. And I think me and Kurtz played on a line together
Yeah.
for a while.
I think I was looking up at you. You were a little better.
But no, I was, and I would say my pride and joy was the penalty kill.
Yeah.
There's nothing more I enjoyed.
But you could score shorties too.
Yeah.
And you couldn't, Carts?
Score shorties?
Yeah.
No, I was a dump and chase kind of guy.
That's why you love the PK. You could ice it. No,
Yeah.
no issues.
Woohoo! Yeah. You mean you're telling me I can ice it?
What type of player is Ryan Carter? You have to take your headphones off for this.
Oh, sure.
No, he was very similar. I mean,
We played I played like 30 games there with
30 games together, and aside from that, like we were kind of in when he was in New Jersey, we didn't see him a lot, and then you went out to Anaheim, right, and then to Minnesota. So I didn't, but playing with him, we were very similar players, very very similar players. He was heavier than me, probably a little harder in the corners than I was. I was kind of a get in there and give it a stick jam and then get out, get back on the D side, but very
Hey, you got to know what you're good at, right? I mean, that's what makes a good player sometimes, understanding your role.
Yeah, well, I couldn't wrestle those big D men in the corner back in that day.
Yeah. No, that was fun. So let's move on now. You finished your career. I'm curious because you went over and played in Sweden and then in Ireland. Was it Ireland?
Yeah,
How was that?
it was
The
awesome.
Belfast Giants?
Yeah, it was unbelievable, and it was something me and my wife had identified we wanted to do well before the end of my career, right? Like we were like, hey, how crazy would it be to go over there, get paid to play over in Ireland for a year? We think it'd be awesome, and we were fortunate enough, kind of at the end of the career, for it to pan out, and it was everything as expected. It was awesome.
It's a shorter season, right? For
Yeah.
the listeners that don't get, I mean, I crossed paths with tons of guys over the years that that's what they do, right? The NHL, for whatever reason, isn't happening anymore. I'm tired of the American League. I'm going to go make some good money, tax-free,
Yeah.
shorter season, and kind of pick my spot even, if you're lucky, right? I want to go to Finland, I want to go to Austria, whatever. How much different is the hockey, though?
Well, it's different, and I mean, obviously, the Swedish to the Belfast is you're at a different point in your career. Sweden, the pressure from the fans and the community rivals Montreal, Toronto.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, because
That's all they got?
It's small towns. It's all they got. Like
Yeah.
where we played was a small town. It was a mill city. Like pretty sure it's a steel town. Like hard working town.
Blue collar town.
And it's what they had. And so you would I signed late in the season, like it was into almost beginning of December by the time we got over there, and they were down at the bottom, and it was the biggest roller coaster of emotions. You would win a game, town just buzzing, you would lose a game, newspapers are getting slid under your door, you go to your kids' hockey practice, no one will talk to you.
Come on.
Yeah, and then you win a game, and then they're back. You're walking in, you're tying skates. Everyone's like, "Good job."
Your kids played in Sweden then? They played youth hockey in
Yeah,
Sweden?
my son played in Sweden.
That's awesome.
And they actually went to a Swedish-speaking school. Like they went right into it. They couldn't speak Swedish, but the school was great. Teachers helped them out. And the funny thing about kids is, whether it's a boy or a girl, you give them a ball or you give them a doll, like they find a way to play. They find a way to communicate. They absolutely loved the schooling part of it. Everything was great on my family side. It was just the pressures as a player
Wow.
was
I wouldn't have thought that.
No, that's You can see it though, because the
Yeah,
import now
absolutely.
they also have import rules, so there's only a couple imports, right?
Yeah.
Is it like 5 per team?
Well, Sweden doesn't have an import rule. It might have changed now. They might have, but when I was there, it didn't. I think we had 10, 12 imports.
Okay. So Belfast, did you get your master's? Because that was kind of one of the things that you could do when you went there too, right? Like, didn't they have a program where you could get a master's in like a year or something?
Yeah, that's the big sell over in England. It's a master's in a year program. What happened with me was I still got 20 credits left at Western Michigan.
Still?
Still.
We're going to get there, Patty.
Yeah. So I contacted Western at the time, talked to the alumni people, and had kind of set up an agreement where I would go to school, finish those 20 credits in Belfast, but get my Western Michigan degree, right? Kind of a win-win from both sides. It was kind of set, ready to go. And about 2 weeks before we went to Belfast, Western calls and is like, hey, we think it looks better if you come back to
Uncle.
Western and get the degree. So it was like, okay, like I get it, whatever. So I didn't want to take a master's without having my bachelor. Like, to me, it just didn't make sense. It didn't.
Yeah.
And the other thing is now you kind of take the pressure out of that. Like you said, it's a shorter schedule. It's a college schedule. You play on weekends. You play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It gives your family an opportunity Monday through Thursday. You're out. Let's go see this site. Let's go see that site. Let's go here. We can travel here. We can travel there. So it was really. I'm glad it happened that way, because I looked at some of those guys taking those masters writing papers, like they're going from the rink to write, their dictations or whatever they were writing, and it was like, well, I'm glad I'm not doing that.
Yeah. I could see where that would be troublesome. On the hockey side, man, you know what would be so much fun about that is like you're a bottom 6 forward in the NHL. You got to get the red line, you got to put it in the corner, then you got to go get it back. You go overseas, you cross that blue line, you start thinking east-west.
Yeah, 100%.
Making a slap shot,
Yeah.
spinning
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah.
away from the forecheck or the.
I'm going to pull up here. I'm
D-man.
going to draw somebody to myself. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to throw a sauce pass maybe on my backhand all the way to the other side. Want to know why? Because I can.
and you're expected to, and to be quite frank with you, if you don't and you don't put up the points, you get fired.
Yeah, but it'd be fun. That would be a fun way. That I didn't get to go overseas when I was done playing, but that's the one part I miss about it is I wanted to go over and just have fun trying to score goals, like slappers, top cheese.
Guys seem like they love it.
Yeah, it's
Like beautiful place to play, to experience. The career's winding down. Like, it just seems like if you can pull it off, it's an awesome, awesome way to wind down.
Exactly, 100%. And you can add another 5 years to your career doing it. It's so much easier on the body.
Not too late, Carts.
The travel's not extensive. Pay in most of those leagues is really good. You get a car, you get an apartment. It's all free. Like you said, you're living in the Alps or in France or Sweden. It's a great way to extend it, and actually a lot of guys use it too for, the family experience of living abroad.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So coaching, how'd you get into it?
It was something I knew I wanted to do well back when I was still playing in the NHL. Like, it was just that side of the game always intrigued me. It felt like a really good way to stay in the game once you retire. So it was something I always wanted to at least give it a shot. And when I retired, I was talking to my agent and just said, like, hey, here's what I'd like to do. If you can help me out, if you know of anything, just, kind of throw my name out there. And at the time, Carolina was hiring an assistant coach in the A, and having played there and everything, it kind of stars and everything aligned, and it was able to be my opportunity into coaching.
How much did the Calder Cup run with the Wolves as an assistant coach you feel benefit you?
It was huge. There's, like, you say it as a player, like, to guys that haven't been in the playoffs, like, wait until you experience playoff hockey. Same thing from a coach's standpoint. Just every little detail that you're looking for, every little detail that you're watching is just amped up. The cat and mouse game of adjustments is amped up. The power play penalty kill battles amped up. Every time you put a guy on the ice, you're sitting there going, oh man, like, I didn't get the matchup I wanted. We got to get through this. Like, you know what I mean? Everything's magnified. So I think it was huge in the experience of where I'm at today, right? Like it makes what I'm doing here with Minnesota now familiar versus if you don't have that experience or you don't you get to this level, it can be a lot. And it was huge. And that's why I think at the AHL level, it's so important for those prospects to play meaningful games like that, because it's not the same.
So when you're playing, they say you're paid to practice, you play for free. Coaching, I'm sure the games are fun. What's the job part of it? Like, what are you paid to do as a coach? You know, is it cut film? Is it talk to people, plan practices? Like, what's the job component to coaching? Like the grind part.
It's all the above, right? Like some days you're psychiatrist to these kids. You know what I mean? You're coming in like, hey, like this guy's not playing well. Like it's not just hey, we need you to play better. We got to get to the bottom of, you know, maybe it's something at home. Maybe it's you're doing everything. You're trying to find what's going on with the guy, push the buttons that's going to get him where he wants to go. You're trying to put the X's and O's together here. You're trying to put practice plan here. You're trying to put a lineup together that makes sense, that gives you the best opportunity. You're watching other teams, what they're doing. But I would say the biggest adjustment for me from playing to coaching is the amount of video time. You know what I mean? Like as a player, you go to the game, right? You prepare, you see the film before the game ends, kind of move on from it, right? Like you might watch your shifts a little bit the next day, but as a coach, like that's really when our game starts.
When your job starts, yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, we put guys over the bench and everything, but now the game ends. Now you got to go. You got to break down the game. You got to break down the special teams or the area that you're working in, and that's another 2 to 2.5 hour process after the game ends.
How do you get to know Murat Hustadinov? Like you said, you're a psychiatrist sometimes for these guys. You got to figure out what's going on at home. You're trying to figure out what makes them tick. Here's a kid that just comes in, is learning the country, the language, the league, the culture, where to go, where to be. As a coach, how do you try to help him?
Yeah, it's two things. It's Kirill Kaprizov interpreting, and then Google Translate, right, on your phone. But you treat him just like anyone else. You got to go up to him, ask him if he has any question, like kind of try to get to know the kid, build the trust with the kid, build that relationship. It's not as easy as it is with a North American guy or, you know, an English-speaking European, but it's got to be done because just like anyone else, these guys at this level, you can't just tell them to jump. You got to have a reason why they need to jump to do things. So you have to build that level of trust and that communication.
Yeah, man. It's interesting dealing with the kids and stuff too. That whole component and the mental side of it and how to get the best out of them. And it's a long schedule and you could go on and on and on and on. But you were a forward and you coach the D now. So what was that transition like and how does that work? Like, you know, when in terms of like building a relationship with the D, like some of these guys have played more D than you have, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. It was a weird adjustment at the time, but I had a really good group of mentors, right? I had Ryan Wojciechowski, who'd played D, coached the D for a long time, and Tim Gleason, who was the D development guy at the time. And then I think being the fact that I was a 200-foot player and understood the game from a defensive mind helped in the process of it. But it was just learning it. And I think the other thing that people kind of take for granted, whether you're a D guy, a forward guy, whatever, like if your aspirations to be a head coach at a professional level, you better know both sides of the puck.
Yeah.
Right? So it was kind of the step of I knew this side, got to get this side dialed in, and it just kind of went. And the other thing in the process of it is the way I look at it is everything's reversed. If you're going back to break out a puck as a D-man, that's no different than a forward being first touch on a forecheck. Mm-hmm. Right? Like you're going in that corner, you have to have a plan. It's the same deception, right? It's the same thing, just reversed. So that helped with it too. And a lot of it's building the trust with these guys. And when you talk to them, like I said, you better make sure you know what you're talking about, right? And that's where you build the trust, is if you can give these guys feedback and helpful tips and coaching that they go, hey, all right, he might not have been a D, but he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you got to be well versed in it. But those things all kind of combined have played into my ability to help teach that side of the puck.
What makes a good PK? So you came up November 28th, whatever it was, and jumped right in and kind of took over the PK. Is it safe to say like PK is kind of like your lane too a little bit? Like you run point on video and a lot of the systems with the PK. What makes a good penalty kill these days?
Well, there's a lot of things in it. It's structure, right? You have to have the right structure. You have to have the right amount of aggressiveness. But what you need in a good PK is you need to put these guys in situations where they understand read situations. Because you're outmanned. You can have all the structure you want in a penalty kill, but there's gray area everywhere, right? Power play starts moving, there's gray area. So putting them in an educated position where when you get to that gray area, what's the read? What's the option? And then when that guy makes the read, what are the three guys behind him reading off of? That's where you need to find that balance, and there's growth to it, and there can be gray areas. There's going to be mistakes in it, but when you can get those four guys reading off each other in that gray area, and when it does get to a familiar situation, the structure takes over, that you pick back up in that area.
So which mistake do you have more leeway with? So let's say there's an aggressive mistake. Let's say there's a read mistake. Like which one do you like accept a little bit more? Because as a PK, like if I was coaching PKs, I'd be like, I don't care. Let's be aggressive. I want a skating PK. I want you to be aggressive. There's gray area, but let's make the players play. And then there's different ones where it's like, hey, let's read this. Let's play this. Let's sit back. Let's not give them anything. Like where with you do you have a soft spot?
I have a soft spot. I think on the entries, on zone entries, that's a hard skating, we want to kill this play, aggressive area, right? But thing with the NHL nowadays is if a guy's got the puck on his stick and he's looking you in the eyes and you go running at him, it's not going to end well, right?
They make $12 million for a reason.
Yes. So that's where you get into the gray area, right? So you want to pressure entries, you want to pressure shots, rebounds, back bobbles in the corner, right? You've heard it, you did this, you've heard all these terms, but those are your pressure areas. But when they break your pressure and they're looking you in the eye, that's where now you have to get into your structure. And then when they move off of that is where you get into your reads and your gray area.
I asked John Hines just before you jumped on to tell us a little bit about you. He was very complimentary, as you might imagine. But just your communication skills, preparation, you do more than what's asked, all those things, which I'm sure you're glad to hear. But he talked about
your hair and how good it looks.
Yeah, that
Do
as
you get
well.
a cut every 10 days or something?
I would if I could, but this is Duke Cannon.
Oh, look at that.
Locker room.
Wow, this guy. He's hired.
He's a pro.
He's hired.
This guy's a pro. Oh, so
One of the things he said, though, is solution-based, right? Like you're good at giving the players the answers to the test, essentially. So when you're talking about the PK, hey, if they do this, we do that. How important is that in getting the guys to buy in, to believe when, you might be in a struggle, the PK might be struggling, you might be in a losing streak, whatever it is, but you guys as coaches are trying to provide them with all the information they're going to need to be most prepared to go out there and execute.
Yeah, that's it. At the end of the day, like they look for us for solutions, right? There's going to be times where you're going to have to tip your hat and you're going to have to say, hey, like they made a play. They got their 5 best players on the ice. They made a play. But you always want to give them solutions, but also in those solutions from those teaching moments is you want to give them familiarity. So when this happens again, you go, I've seen this. I know what to do, right? That's where you teach the gray areas and the reads. And so that's what you try to give them in the teaching part of it is, hey, when I get in this situation again, all of a sudden, boom, hey, I know what to do. I've been here before, and that's what I try to give them.
I want to ask you about joining the Wild, right? You get hired in July. You're going to work for Brett McLean in Iowa. Awesome, really cool opportunity. And then in November, how do you find out you're coming up to Minnesota? Was that on your radar at all? And what were those next 48 hours like?
Yeah, no, it was mayhem. So we were flying home from Philadelphia. We were in Hershey playing there. We get delayed in Denver airport. We get on the plane. We're boarded, kind of sitting there, and then there's a stir kind of within the group. Like you could tell something was going on. guy holds up a phone and is like, hey, they just relieved Dean and Woody. And you're like, okay, like, man. So coaches, you kind of start talking like, wonder who they're going to replace him with. Never once in my mind did it cross my mind, right? Like, you're like, okay. And then sitting there, and all of a sudden it came across, like, we're getting ready to push back from the gate, and it came across that they had hired Heinze. And you're like, oh, okay, like, good hire. And then next thing you know, my phone rings, and it's a Texas number. I didn't have the number in my phone. I'm like, that's weird. So just kind of let it go to voicemail. It called immediately right back. I'm like, usually telemarketers don't do that. I should probably answer this one. So I answer, and it was Billy Guerin. And at the time, even when I answered the phone and he's like, hey, it's Bill, I didn't think about it being me, right? At the time, Brett McLean was on his way back to see his family up here in Minnesota. So I thought it was just kind of a, hey, here's what happened. If the players ask or whatever, maybe talk to him a little bit about what's going on. And he was just like, hey, I'm going to be blunt with you. Do you want to coach the Wild tomorrow? And obviously I'm like, yeah, I do. And then from there, it was just a whirlwind of flying in, landing at 6 p.m., car service coming to get me at 9 p.m., getting in here at 1:30 a.m., to back at the rink at 6 a.m., to
Game day.
running a PK meeting at 9:30 in the morning the next day, to coaching. It was quite the whirlwind, but at the same time, an awesome experience.
How'd that meeting go?
It was good. Really good.
For real?
Your clips? Whose clips? Yours? Or they're just like...
No, they were my clips. I had 3.5 hours from Des Moines
In the car.
to
Yeah.
St. Paul in the car to
Coming
put
up by
a
35.
meeting. Yeah.
You put that meeting together, and you
I
were
was
dialed.
I was crushing it.
I love
ready
it.
to go.
I love it. Because it could have, let's be honest, it could have been a train wreck, that meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, it could have, yeah.
I mean, that's not a
Very
knock
easily.
at you. Like, given what you'd gone
Dude, but
through.
you only get one first impression, too, like in front of the
yeah.
in front of the guys.
Yeah, and you met obviously you met them at training camp, but it's not like you've been with the organization for 5 years. It's like, oh, it's Patty. Some of these guys might barely have known you from camp, and here you are, November 28th, getting ready for the Blues. The team's in a bit of disarray. The two coaches have been let go, and here you are like, hey, guys, for those of you who don't know me, and here's the PK for tonight. Like, it could have been a rough go for you.
Yeah, for
You know?
sure, yeah. Thanks for putting it in perspective.
Yeah.
You could have blown that up.
I'm glad you had your act together and you killed it, but it could have gone the other way.
This is the true character test of every assistant coach, though. Part of the job is the bag skate for the extra guys. What kind of guy are you? Are you like,
Oh yeah,
burn them out, or you pat them on the back like, let's get through our 15-minute skate. We'll get a sweat, but I'm not going to crush you. Like, which guy are you?
I'm the middle ground. I'm the, hey, like, it sucks, it's unfortunate, but we got work to do.
We got to
today.
get something out of this.
We got to get something out of this, so let's bare our heads and do it. The other thing I think, and I've done it since
You
I
can't play the
started
middle ground. You can't be there. You got to pick.
started coaching, is if you're going to bag skate guys, like, I get it, like, drills and compete, like, you can't, but if you're going to line guys up on the line,
you got to do it with them.
you got to do it with them. You have to.
I love
and
it.
You're not going to be anywhere at their level, but they sit there and they see you huffing and puffing with it. They respect it of like, okay, you're not just burning us out.
Yeah.
Well, you probably got in that playoff run you talked about Carolina where you got in the Eastern Conference Finals. You were black acing for the most part, so you were getting bagged every day,
Yeah.
literally every day.
Dude, the bag skates don't make any sense though, because the guys that play 8 minutes need to be in the best shape of anybody. Meanwhile, the guys that play 20 minutes never
taking the
practice.
option.
It makes
Yeah.
no sense.
Yeah, you're right.
But it's just the way it works. Like,
Well-
yeah, we need to bury you for 30 minutes on the ice so that you're in good enough shape to play your 8 minutes. Coach, I can do that without working out.
And the way this year's Wild team has gone with like 12 minutes for the game, hey, this guy's out, this guy's in, like you probably have to be a little careful when you're bag skating the Goligoskis, the Dakota Murmases of the world, because they might be in 6 hours later just based on, I mean, that's the NHL, right? Game time decisions are all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And it happened to us once already this year. Fortunately, it wasn't a burn them out situation. But yeah, it's happened. I think Murmas has got called into the rink 3 or 4 times now where something's come up.
Right, he didn't think he was playing at lunchtime, and then
Yeah, and it's like, hey, we need you to get down to the rink. So
That's where you love those pros, though, because let's say that's a road game. He doesn't go out and have like 6 cookies, ice cream, or cheeseburger or something. Like the pros are pros, and you can call them in. They had the pregame meal. They're ready to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And some of them, I mean, different situations, but sometimes you play your best games when you don't think about it, right? You're sitting in the hotel room, sitting there going, what am I going to do
Watching
now?
Netflix,
Yeah,
and you get a call.
Hey,
You got no choice but to just rely on instinct and go
Yeah,
play. Then it's
exactly.
fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a good segue. Let's take another word from the sponsors. We need these guys. We appreciate these guys. Cub Foods, Aquarius Home Services. Thank you.
If you look real closely at PJ Flex headset, it's a Cub headset. They love sports. They sponsor Wild on 7th. They sponsor the Homer Hanky for the Twins. They're one of us. They're awesome. They're Cub. They sell alcohol at the grocery stores connected to the liquor stores, and they do delivery at Cub.com. So check out Cub, your neighborhood grocery store. Thank you for sponsoring Wild on 7th.
Get ready to transform your home's climate control effortlessly. This March, Aquarius Home Services is unveiling an irresistible offer, slash a whopping $2,000 off their cutting-edge ductless mini-split systems. Why settle for outdated HVAC setups when you can indulge in personalized comfort perfectly tailored to your living space? Say goodbye to the limitations of traditional systems and embrace hassle-free heating and cooling in every nook and cranny with Aquarius Home Services. Whether it's a vintage abode, a cozy cabin retreat, a recent expansion, or even that chilly garage space, their mini splits bring year-round comfort like no other. Aquarius believes in earning the right to be recommended. They're just a click away at aquariushomeservices.com. So, last one for me on this, like, what kind of coach are you? There's old school, like Torts will say a little bit. Then there's like new school kind of. Like, what do you want to be? Like, are you going to be like Paul Maurice? So Paul Maurice, this is, I had him in Carolina for 40 games. A lot of respect for the guy. Great motivator. Would walk into a room, had a great presence, spoke really well, and then would like walk out. And then the assistants would kind of draw up what you got to do and do that kind of thing. But he wasn't like a hard, like, lay the hammer kind of guy, but he's a good communicator, where I think I've never had Torts, but I have had old school coaches where they're kind of the opposite. Like, they challenge you by telling you you're not good enough because they want you to prove to them that you are good. Like, I don't know if I did a good enough job articulating the difference there, but like, where in that line do you fall?
I would say more towards the new school side, but no matter what you are, there's going to be times you're going to have to be firm with guys, right? And to me can you get the message across in a hard conversation? When you have to have a hard conversation with a guy, can you get it across your way? Because if you're not true to who you are and what you've been to the guy through the course of your relationship, you lose him, right? So if you're, and I'm me, I don't know what it is, how to describe it. I'm me, but you talk to guys and everything like that. Now all of a sudden, if there's an issue where you have to have a hard conversation, and I come in and I'm throwing the hammer down, they're like, this.
Yeah, you got to be consistent.
This guy's not real. You know what I mean? So you got to be consistent in it and be able to have the hard conversations, I think the same way that you coach. So you got to be consistent through your message. Yeah.
It's being an assistant coach is hard too, because you have to build the trust of the player, but they know that you're going back to have conversations about the conversation you just had with player, and they have to trust that they can tell you what they honestly feel and that you'll interpret it the right way and paint it in such a light that is positive for them, not negative for them. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. You're the middleman, and you have to nail it every single time,
Yeah. But that's the trust that they have in you, that they, like you said,
that you earn.
Yeah. You can relay that message to the head coach, where the message gets, the head coach gets a full message. You're not leaving anything out on it, but you're also respecting the player side of that message too.
Well, I could go on and on about that.
I just have to ask him about Rod Brind'Amour.
Rod the Bod?
Yeah, you played with him. You coached. He coached you, right, as an assistant. I know when we played Carolina this year, he had great things to say about you. I know you respect him tremendously. I loved him as a player. Like, he was just the man. Tell me about Rod Brind'Amour. I don't care where you start, where you finish, what he's like. Does he really bench press after games? Like, I'll take any of it.
Rod Brind'Amour
is a selfish question.
Everybody thinks there's a dark. Rod Brind'Amour is what you see. That's what he is. You've heard it. Like, He's very regimented. He's very honest. He's true to who he is. We talk to him in a locker room, in a press scrum, and you hear him in between periods. It's him. You know what I mean? There's no persona to it. He works out twice a day. He has his regiment. He's an unbelievable guy. Like it's most. I shouldn't say that, but a lot of what you hear about Rod is dead true. Like he loves to work out. He would work out after games. He would be, he'd play 20 minutes a night in the weight room, weight vest on, doing pull-ups, bench press, and squatting after the game. That's just who he was. It's so ingrained in him to work out that I still to this day think you put him in Carolina's fitness testing today, he would win Carolina's fitness testing.
That's nuts. Who's the best player you played with?
Best player I played with?
Shout out to Minnesota great Eric Stahl.
Yeah, I would say Eric Stahl's up there. Ray Whitney, I obviously had him kind of at the end of his career, but was an amazing player. A lot of good players in Carolina. A lot of them were kind of at the end of their career, so unfortunately I didn't get to see them, kind of at their peak. But there were Corey Stillman. Like there were a lot of good guys.
Shout out to whoever was traded for him to bring Stillman to Carolina. Yeah. They got rid of me.
What a deal.
I know. It was, hey, we got to get rid of Cards. And they got Stillman in return. Let's hit, we need some social clips here. Let's hit him with some rapid fire before we let Mr. Dwyer go back to his video. You got more video today?
Oh, yeah. Always more video.
There's never an end to the video. Okay, I'll go first. So what was your first real job?
I was a cart guy at a grocery store.
Like you'd pull the carts from the parking lot.
So you'd walk around.
Oh, dude, what a brutal job.
Yeah.
People were just leaving carts all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Well, back then, this is 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So not to date myself, but 25 years ago, there was a little bit more respect in the cart game.
You think so?
Yeah, back then.
What do you think? You think people are bigger scumbags now with their shopping carts?
I think it's different in Montana than it is in. Where are you from? Where are you from?
Outside of Philly.
You got it.
Shopping carts are like on the streets of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They just take them from the store and it becomes part of the city. The best road trip snack, whether it's on the bus, in the AHL, or if you're making a trip around with the family, what are you eating?
Licorice.
Licorice.
Yeah.
Wow.
He didn't even hesitate.
No, he didn't. He knew. First concert.
Tiny Tim with my mom. I was, I had to be
Tiny Tim.
12 years old. Yeah, he used to play like a little ukulele.
Wait, what? Tiny Tim, like
You haven't seen Tiny Tim?
No.
Me either.
Like it's way back.
Everybody Googling Tiny Tim right now with a ukulele. Right, sounds sweet.
Yeah, but like first big time was Tragically Hip.
Oh, the
Oh,
hip yeah. You're almost Canadian.
Best dessert.
Cheesecake.
Well, it's only because you can't say licorice. Your pet peeve.
Oh, jeez.
Good power plays.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I can't say there's like one thing like off the top of my head that just drives me crazy.
I'm looking up Tiny Tim. I'm sorry for the delay.
Don't worry about it. What was your first car?
Suzu Rodeo.
Nice. You have any guilty pleasures?
Licorice.
Unfortunately, Tiny Tim died in Minneapolis, 1996. When did you see him?
Oh, it would have been probably early 90s.
Wow. All right, now I've totally just lost my train of thought.
You've derailed.
Goaltender you scored your first NHL goal against?
I believe it's Nakamiami in Philly.
Ninomaki?
Ninomaki, yeah, there
Taro
it is.
Ninomaki?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about the goal.
I just went to the net, picking and shot it. It hit me somewhere in my lower leg area and went
So
in.
beauty.
Your first goal is off your shin pads?
Yeah. And I didn't even know it was like, I was just going to the net, tangled with the defenseman. Next thing I know, it was in.
Oh.
And
Did you get a celly at least?
no, I had no idea. I was like, oh yeah, I thought Pickenen scored it. And
Yoni?
You have the puck
they announced
still.
it was me. Yeah, I got the puck.
You have any weird food combos? Like ketchup on your eggs?
That is not weird, dude.
I do ketchup on my eggs, yeah.
Gross.
Growing up as a kid, I put ketchup on my green beans.
Ooh,
I
that
don't know if that's a
Wow,
weird
that
combo.
sounds like a kid thing, right? Mom's jamming the green beans on the
Yeah.
plate. You got to eat them.
Yeah,
What can I do to spice them up a little bit?
yeah. A little ketchup.
keep going. I'll keep going.
Favorite season?
Summer.
Hockey season, duh.
Clearly not.
Oh man, this is off the rails. What's your go-to drink? Like adult beverage?
Beer. It's some sort of light beer. Pilsner. Big fan of Pilsners.
If you're picking a city to spend a night in, where are you going?
In the U.S.?
Yeah.
or
Anywhere.
No, U.S.
Okay, fine.
Probably Boston.
North End, Italian.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Last one for me. Do you have your own Netflix login, or are you still on your mom and dad's?
I have my own.
Okay, good for you. You've made it.
It's in the Swedish kroner, but
It is?
I still pay
You
for
pay
it
in Swedish kroner?
we got it when we were in Sweden, so I pay in Swedish.
I'm going to piggyback off that. Give us a show to watch that you've been binging lately.
The last show that I watched was over All-Star break with my wife, and it was about a girl.
6 weeks ago, bro.
Yeah, I video.
Too much video.
Video. It gets you every time. But it was about a girl that had gotten kidnapped, and they thought it was like a modern Gone Girl. I forget the name of it, but they thought it was a Gone Girl, and it actually ended up being a real kidnapping. It's a good little miniseries.
Producer Chris McMurray apparently has seen the show. I'm not surprised by that. He has a very odd taste in television.
But no, I like true crime documentaries and stuff like that. It's either that or comedy. I either want to laugh or I want a little drama.
Right on, my man. Well, hey, I tell you what, you got anything else for him?
I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate you coming on. Good perspective. Good luck. Congrats on the gig. Things have gone well, so congrats, and appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Peace.